What is going on, snooker fans, and welcome to the first Snooker Digest Monday of this brand new snooker season. The tour went east for the first Chinese event of the season in Shanghai, and this was our first opportunity to see most of the top boys in action this season, as the majority of them skipped out on the Championship League over the summer. And if there was any thoughts that we might see some early season rustiness, well, these were put to bed fairly early as the standard across the board was incredibly high. A total of 56 centuries were scored across 24 matches played, including a 147 from Zhang Anda, and by achieving this, Zhang has now made a maximum in 4 consecutive seasons. And this will be a big season for Zhang, as he is set to defend all the money that he earned 2 years ago during that real breakthrough season he had. And we also could have had a new record with the most centuries ever made in a best of 11 match, as Kyron Wilson missed this no-look black, which would have secured a 7th century in 11 frames in his first round contest with Si Wei. Now, in his interview afterwards, Kyron talked about not regretting that decision, as he needs to lead the revolution of bringing snooker into the modern day, something he was very clearly trying to start last season as well. Now, as much as I do respect Kyron's mindset in trying to make snooker more progressive, this explanation was just, in my opinion, a load of nonsense, to be honest. Judd Trump, one of the sport's most exciting ever players, if you put Judd in that position, he would have absolutely made sure of the century for his own records more than anything. It really isn't too much of a big deal and something I'm not going to dwell on. But the fact is, Kyron would have got the same level of applause from the crowd whether he had just potted the black normally or done the whole showboaty thing that he tried. And there's a time for flashiness, there's a time for not. And yeah, like I say, not going to dwell on it, but I don't really get his explanation at all. Speaking of Judd Trump, he may not have successfully defended his title from 12 months ago. However, he did still manage to make 6 centuries in the 2 matches he played before losing to Mark Selby in the quarterfinals. And he, of course, kick-started his bid for a century of centuries by making 10 here last season. So he is already well off the mark as this century-making machine looks to break even more break-building records. And then there's another century record that may be imminent, and that is Neil Robertson becoming the 4th player to make 1,000 career centuries. 3 for the Aussie so far this season has taken his tally up to 983, and you would suspect he'll be reaching that milestone by around November-December time, or possibly even beforehand, depending what his consistency levels look like for the rest of the season. We also got our first look at the world champion Zhao Sing Tong, and he didn't look like to be a man suffering from a hangover from his win in Sheffield 3 months ago. He convincingly beat Chris Wakeling and Ding Junhui before losing to Kyron in the semi-finals, and his run also included 6 century breaks as well. It has to be said, Kyron did a bit of a job on him in that second session of their semi-final, but all things considered, he looks like a man who could threaten quite a few tournaments this season. Elsewhere, Mark Selby also enjoyed a decent week, whitewashing Shaun Murphy 6-0 in the first round, and then beat Judd Trump 6-4 before losing to Ali Carter in a semi-final, which he did look like he was in control of at the back end of that match. I think Mark will really be targeting the big events this season, and make no mistake about it, the Shanghai Masters is one of the bigger tournaments on the snooker calendar, so for him to get off to such a good start will do him no harm whatsoever. Also, a nice little niche stat was that Mark Selby has now won all 3 of his matches against Judd Trump at this tournament. So even though the pair's head-to-head is in Judd's favour, Mark has got his number at this specific event. And now let's talk about Ali Carter. How often have we seen a player receive a last-minute call-up to an event and take full advantage of it? If we even go back to the Masters 5 years ago, it was Ali Carter who took a last-minute call-up there, and he also reached the final there as well, and he's done the exact same thing last week. He also done things the hard way, coming from 5-2 down to beat both Mark Williams and Zhao Guodong, and then from 8-6 behind to beat Mark Selby 10-8 in the semi-finals. And he also played his part in a tremendously competitive final as well, making a 140 break along the way. If we look at Ali's sort of last season, you could see that he lost his way somewhat, but of course just before then, he had been enjoying one of his best ever spells as a professional, and the key to his success is not only a good temperament, which we all know Ali doesn't always possess, but he is always a much better player when he plays more aggressive, rather than the cautious approach that dominated most of his career. You feel like a player with his cue action, as silky as he has, he should be going for his shots a lot more often. And if he can rediscover that touch that took him to the 2023 German Masters and the 2024 Masters final, he can get himself back into the top 16, as he currently is only one place below it. The only downside for this event was that it carried no ranking points, so this run to the final done nothing to help him in that regard, but still plenty of positives for him to take going forward. But much like I did for the majority of tournament reviews last season, I will end this video by talking about Kyren Wilson. Winner of 4 titles last season, he has already bagged his first of this new campaign at an event where he claimed his first ever title 10 years ago. Forgetting about his missed black against Shanghai in the opening round, Kyren deserves so much praise for the player that he has become since winning the world title last spring. He is now a prolific winner and a player who doesn't really have any holes in his game. He looked far too good for O'Sullivan in the quarterfinals, and as I already mentioned, kind of dismantled Xing Tong in that 6-frame spell at the end of their semi-final. And, even when Ali was coming back at him in the final, he just rose to the occasion, dusted off the next 2 frames without too much concern. And, there's no sort of panic when he gets within sight of the winning line. He just crushes through it. He is a man who is very much at the top of their game right now. You can see it in the way he expresses himself on and off the table. And he may have already thrown the gauntlet down to say to Judd, right, it's your turn to match me next, because we know the rivalry they've had last season, sort of all through their career. And it could be another heavyweight clash because we saw how well Judd Trump is playing as well. But for Kyren, the really impressive thing is the fact that he's put to bed the demons of that Crucible curse 3 months ago. He felt really confident in his game going into the World Championship. I think he really fully backed himself to defend that title. Lost first round, would have been a disappointment, but he's clearly, dusted himself off in the off-season, put in the work, and here we are, first tournament of the season, first win of the season. He won 4 titles last season, and there's nothing to suggest he won't equal that, or maybe even better it this time around.